IndoConnect is absolutely delighted to have a young influencer with us, Miss Mickey. And hi, Mickey. Welcome to IndoConnect. Um, Young influencers like yourself get heard, seen a lot more than traditional publishers like us. So tell us about your story. Where were you born? And tell us about this new love of being an influencer. How has it changed your life?
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm also very honored to be here today. So a little bit about me. My name is Miki. I was born and raised in Jakarta. I lived there until high school. Then I went to Hong Kong to study. I know it's kind of an unusual choice of study. The options back then were Hong Kong and Singapore. And as a young 18 years old, I wanted to go as far as possible from home. So I decided to go to Hong Kong. I ended up studied and worked there for about 8 years. During COVID time, also I was spent in Hong Kong. Then I think it was time for me to move on.
And what did you study? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
What did you study?
I studied marketing information management in City University of Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit backstory then. I always wanted to do more on the marketing roles, but don't judge me. I just live in Hong Kong 8 years, but I don't speak Cantonese. Mm-hmm. So that was a challenge for me. I think to navigate, I survived, with English, but I think it's a bit hard. And that's why also one of the reasons why I decided to move out of Hong Kong. Coming to Singapore in 2023, so it's only been 1.5 years, almost 2 years this year. When you first move here, you do your work, but I wanted to find a hobby, passion project, I would say, to fill up my weekends. Because honestly, when I first came here, I didn't have a lot of friends. So I feel content is a good way or a good reason for me to meet different people, cool people, interesting and amazing people in Singapore. So that's where I started to be a bit more consistent and putting efforts and commitment in my content work since end of 2023. And turns out it well received by the audience. It opened so many doors for me, not only just meeting people, but like this, I wouldn't be here today without the content work I've put in the past 2 years. More speaking opportunities, work with cool community brands that wouldn't have been possible without the content work itself. So I would say it's been fun and a roller coaster ride. A lot of learning, a lot of learning and a lot of growth itself for me personally.
Wonderful. You also have a day job with an organization. Would you like to talk about it? Or
yeah, I don't mind. I'm an IT consultant, digital consultant, you can say it, in Accenture. So I'm mainly focused on marketing technology aspect. So that is definitely my priority and my day-to-day job. My clients includes usually financial services, retail. So we help them to implement solutions, IT solutions based on their needs and their KPI. So we help them to achieve or deliver a better experience for their end customers through technology.
Wonderful. What is your impression of Singapore now that you are creating content, and what was it before you saw Singapore this way? Okay. How has it changed?
Yeah. To begin with, right, I have a very good impressions of Singapore. So if people are complaining about Singapore houses are small, for me, I'm very thankful and grateful for where my current living condition already. People are much friendlier, they speak English, so it's much easier for me to integrate to Singapore environment. And culturally, we are much more similar, Indonesia and Singapore being geographically next to each other. So it's easy for me to get along and integrate my life here. But after I started doing content, right, I think one thing that opened my perspective so much is there are so many cool people in Singapore. There's so many possibilities that I didn't think it was possible before. For example, starting a business as an Indonesian in Singapore. I mean, coming here as a professional, surrounded by mostly professional, all I think I can think of is like continue being a professional. But then turns out there are so many other possibilities in Singapore, and these people. I mean, mainly Indonesian. These people, they live here for years and they've built their career, their business here. So I think what I learned is there's not only one pathway here to be in Singapore, but there are actually multiple opportunities, and it's possible. I think that's the key word. It's possible, even though we are foreigners or we are newcomer, we're immigrant here, but it's definitely possible to do other things than being a professionals. So I think that's how it changed me so much. So it's not more like now I have like broader vision of what things can be done in Singapore.
And back home, what do you think about youth, Indonesian youth? What are they thinking? What do they like? What are the brands they are looking at? And what do you see? Do you see the Indonesian youth in Singapore who've already come here different from those back home? And what are their likes and dislikes? And why do they follow you?
Yeah. I'll answer this for your first question, right, diplomatically, because Indonesia is a huge country. It's 265 million people, and I'm definitely cannot speak for everybody. But then I can speak maybe in general, right? People in Indonesia, some of them, I think, how to say, because of our upbringing, they will be a bit more. In Singapore, we call it paise, nggak enak hati in bahasa Indonesia. Our life back in home is more laid back. As long as we are happy, then came ready, and because of the limited exposure that I have with maybe the situation abroad, I would say some of them might not even dream to live abroad, or even coming to Singapore or working abroad is just a dream for them. Not a lot of them have the opportunity like me to study and to work abroad. I know I'm one of those privileged kid who have this opportunity thanks to my parents, but unfortunately not a lot of, or majority Indonesians, they don't have this opportunity. But that doesn't stop them from dreaming big and trying these opportunities. In terms of what they like, definitely we have a lot of local brands in Indonesia that I can say in the recent years there are more and more local brands that comparable to international brands. I personally also now buy local brands and use it and bring it
Name
back to
some of those. Are you able to name some Indonesian brands which you think are good? Yes.
In terms of skincare itself, I use like Second Date, Bio Beauty Lab. So these are like local skincare brands that are skin that I use it. So usually every time I go home, I will restock and bring it to Singapore. It's not only like in terms of price, it's cheaper, but I think in terms of quality, it's also, again, like I said, comparable to international brands. In terms of clothing itself, there's this, I think, Monomoli, Omah Ethnic, like this some local, again, clothing brand that I've been wearing in the past few years also. So I don't mind, like every Chinese New Year, every time I go home, I will restock and bring it to Singapore. And I'm very proud of wearing that and say that this is actually Indonesian local brands. Then to answer your question, how they are different, how Indonesian youth are different from those who have been studying or working abroad, right? I think, again, I cannot speak for all, but I would say definitely we have like better adaptability, and because we've been exposed to foreign culture that we are somehow have to integrate, and we are to be more open-minded. And maybe some people who've been here long enough, we've picked up the Singapore pace, the efficiency, the straightforwardness. Some Indonesians, I heard they're having a bit of challenges adapting with how Singapore is being very straightforward. Like there's no small talks, just straight to the point, what we want, what we don't want, and we be very Singaporeans are being very clear about. But some, I would say, they would still stick to our roots, so different perspectives. And then I think why people follow me, one thing that I realized is when I first found the niche, the topic. So just a bit of background, Hamid Mark talks about Indonesians in Singapore, about their life and their working experience, sharing tips, that hoping that we can inspire those who are based in Indonesia to also work abroad. To bring back to my first point, I think there's a lot of Indonesians who wish to also work abroad, but they don't have a first-hand information about, like, first-hand of people's experience about working in Singapore. And I'm bridging them, like those stories that people who I know, that they have inspiring stories about how they can come here to Singapore to work in Singapore. And definitely there are a lot of upsides about working in Singapore. Definitely better pay, better quality of life here, I would say, in terms of transport, health, a lot of things. So, a lot of Indonesians wish to experience the work abroad, and I think that's where my content comes in and help them in some ways to work, whether in Singapore, whether somewhere else, doesn't matter. But obviously my content being specific in Singapore.
Would you recommend Indonesians who are back home to at least come and visit Singapore, try it out, and then you can see whether bigger dreams can be realized? Would you recommend that?
I would say to visit Singapore to just see how it feels. I always tell people, even in my content, live away from your home once in your life.
Yes.
That the whole thing, right? It could be abroad, it could be from somewhere to Jakarta from to other city, like, because when you're far away from your family, there's no comfort zone, there's no, you come back home, there's no one backing you up, and you just have to survive by yourself. That is
True.
a tough, outside your comfort zone situation that I believe everyone, if possible, if there's opportunity, to experience once in their life. Abroad, I think Singapore will be the closest geographically. Singapore or Malaysia will be the closest for them to come to Singapore and experience, regardless whether they decide at the end they want to work here or not, and whether Singapore is for them or not. And come to Singapore, go abroad once in your life if you have the opportunity and have the privilege to, because that will really open your mind and your eyes. Not necessarily better. A lot of, like, some people may think Indonesia is a better place for them. That's fine. But then what I'm trying to say is see the world, and it will change your perspective. Learn and get the good things that we can take from Singapore, and keep what's good from Indonesia while you're living here as well. Because why I'm saying this is, when I first moved to Hong Kong, it was a whole different world itself. I have to survive on my own. I learned how to do household chores. I learned how to do groceries on my own, to survive, to get to know the local people, the culture that is not familiar with me. Then I also had the opportunity to study abroad, exchange in UK, and then I also did volunteering in Vietnam once for 1 month. Every time I move to a new city, even though I've been away for so long, it's always tough. I don't like change. That's the thing. I know. Even moving to Singapore is also a experience itself. I'm not saying that you have to live abroad is a better for everybody, because everyone has their own priority and preference. But for me, that is the things that change and shape me until today. And maybe to share the benang merah, the thing, because when I went abroad, a lot of people helped me to adjust, to share their stories, to give me tips and tricks every time I move to a new country. And I think what I'm doing now is just paying it forward of what I've received, the help I've received. So now if I can help others through this piece of information that I'm sharing through my content, I think that will help them somehow, like how those information helped me when I went abroad and moved to a new place.
Thank you. Which is your most viewed content? What did you talk about and that was most viewed?
It was one with someone who changed, Monica Hines. So she's an Indonesian, but she changed her passport. So she changed nationality already, and she talked about how her decision point, her thought process, why she eventually gave up her Indonesian nationality and become a Singaporean. So I think that it was viral because it was a controversial topic. Some people support so much, oh, I really want to move abroad as well, but some people like, you should be contributing back to Indonesia and stay in Indonesia, and I think that's why it went so viral.
I see. For Indonesians who are coming here for a short while, they don't have maybe less than a week. What would you recommend? What should they be on their priority list when they come to Singapore?
I think I would answer this in a way depends on what they come here for, right? If it's for traveling, for sure, go to like those Marina Bay, Universal Studio, eat all the good food, chicken rice, laksa, bak kut teh, like all those things. But then if their purpose is to find opportunities in terms of if they want to look for jobs, I feel they have to be, before coming here, they need to know what they're looking for and what's the goal. What I'm saying this is because if you don't know anybody in the working professional field and you come here, then what's the purpose? You're not going to find us down below our office and they can talk to us, right? So there's a lot of pre-trip research they have to do, and if possible, secure some coffee chat with people who are willing to share information ahead of time. So then you know that your time here is not wasted, because Singapore is not cheap for us Indonesians. So make sure your time is worth it when you come here.
Wonderful. And which are your favorite haunts? What do you like about Singapore? Where do you often hang out? And what are your favorite places in Singapore? And which are your favorite places back home for Singaporeans to visit and at your recommendation?
I think my favorite place in Singapore is Tanjong Pagar. There's a lot of nice bars, cafe, food. It's a very lively, and the best part is because in the office area, so on weekends it's empty. There's not so many people here, and that's where I usually enjoy and hang out around the area. And you can find almost anything here. So if my friends come or they're asking for dinner, then I will definitely suggest Tanjong Pagar, and they'll be happy to come here as well. I hang out in Tanjong Pagar, City Hall, mainly the Raffles Place, maybe further like Bugis, this area. I know I need to explore more Singapore, but since now I'm living and work around the area, so this is where mostly I spend my time at, and I have everything that I need, so I don't have the reason why I need to, step out of my CBD bubble. I think in Indonesia, I like to hang out in Senopati, in central Jakarta. There's also the equivalent on Tanjong Pagar in Jakarta. So I would also tell Singaporeans to see there. Like Jakarta is not, Indonesia is not only traffic jam and jungle, because that's where the impression towards Indonesians. Then we have like cool places and at a cheaper price. So they like to come to Jakarta, get all the drinks, the good food at a much cheaper, not much I would say, but cheaper price. So I'll tell them to go to those areas. But if they want to see more a local side of Jakarta, I would recommend them to eat the street food, martabak, nasi goreng. the local noodle, the local satay, the one, not the one in the restaurant, the one that is really on the street. But I will give them a caveat. Maybe try on the last few days. So because I know Singaporean tummy, you guys like been very hygiene and not accustomed to like street food. There's this Bali belly thing, right? When they go to Bali, street food and then they get like diarrhea or something. I think it's same like Jakarta belly. So if you know that your food, your tummy is very sensitive, then okay, like go to the restaurant and the restaurant.
It's been delightful speaking with you. What is your target? How many followers do you want? Do you want it only in Singapore or all over the world? So do you look at your competition at all, or you just do your own thing?
I think like try to remind myself and why I started this. It's about I think focus on bringing values to others. The matrix is obviously nice to have, the viewers of each video, the followers, but then I would say it's a side matrix that I look at. As long as my content is bringing values to people in some way or another, then I'm happy enough to do it for now. What is my plan? I think I'll continue to do this since those contents, I think, there's still a demand for this, and there's still a lot of stories that I haven't bring up about Indonesians living in Singapore. So I'll continue do what I'm doing, and at the end of the day, I still have a day job, and I only can do this over the weekend. So I'll keep the current pace of what I'm doing, and at the end of the day, it's not so much about the numbers, but like I said, an opportunities that comes from content itself, meeting like cool people, getting invited to speak, to share. I think that is also one thing I like to look at as the benefits of content instead of just the followers itself. In terms of followers, since my content is mainly in Bahasa, it will be targeting Indonesians in Indonesia and Indonesians in Singapore. But I'm not sure if one day I might switch to English to reach wider audience. But until that time comes, then I'll continue to do to keep it in Bahasa and reach more Indonesians.
How much time do you spend creating your content?
I will say from recording itself, say as in like meeting the interviewers, could be like 1 or 2 hours. The recording itself is short, 20 minutes, but usually I spend time to get to know and build a genuine connection with the person that I interview with. Editing itself, one video, since I've been doing it in the past 1 year, took me 1 hour per video mostly. So depending if I post like 2 to 3 times a week, then it will take 3 hours, and which interview, so mainly take 5 hours of my time over the weekend. On the weekday itself, maybe just a bit here and there, more on the admin stuff like finding the guests or scheduling the interview or making the script. That will probably take 1 hour of my time.
Mickey, IndoConnect has been a very serious publication. We write about presidents coming and meeting each other, or ambassadors and those kind of things, and a bit of culture, but mostly it's been a serious publication. But moving forward, we feel that people like yourself will be leaders and readers of tomorrow. So we are very delighted to have you on board with this interview, and look forward to publishing it in IndoConnect. We also do something called In Diplomacy, which goes beyond only the Indonesian market. It's also it goes to all the other embassies as well. So we'll see some part of your content which we may also transfer to that side. I'll ask you one thing. Do you know the strength of ASEAN? Do you know it's how important it is for the region? As a youngster, how much do you know about ASEAN?
In terms of ASEAN, in a global perspective, I think I personally believe Asia is the next big thing.
Yes.
We are the hub of all the the innovations. And then you've seen like recently how companies are starting to start a headquarter in Vietnam because of the strategic decisions that the government try to impose. And Apple, I think Tesla is like starting to started already, right? Like to open their HQ there. And Indonesia ourselves, we are the biggest in ASEAN, the biggest country, the biggest manpower, and how I would say we need to play our strength better. That's what my personal mission.
Wonderful. And do you think women in ASEAN, Asia, Indonesia, Singapore are treated fairly?
It's a very, very interesting perspective. I was recently also discussed this in my personal, in my social media. The reason why, because I grew up, I'm very privileged. I grew up in a 3-daughter family. So for my parents, all girls, all daughters we have to fly high and successful. So growing up, I've never seen this as an issue. Because we all like study, we all get the same opportunity, and we don't have brothers, so there's no this gender issue that I'm aware of. But then only recently, as in like in the last 5 years, when I've met more and more women and hear their stories, then I realized then the disparity is there. And it's not only in working place, but it's rooted and started from their family themselves. Even I would say people or parents who send their kids abroad. So I have an impression that whose parents who send their kids abroad, they're a bit more open-minded, but turns out there's still this gender sentiment where male is superior. I think so much less in Singapore, because I see a lot of working moms here, and I know government laws protect women so much in certain way, but I think a lot of homework still needs to be done in Indonesia in terms of this.
Thank you for your sharing. I visit Indonesia a fair bit, and I love it a lot. And I like the femininity of Indonesian women. You're very kind, you're very soft-spoken, you are cultured, your crafts are very good, and many of you know how to dance. Those are also beautiful qualities which I would say Indonesia should be known for. Your dances are so good, and your food. And I always feel an Indonesian home is a very warm place to go. You're welcome there. I've been going to Indonesian parties and places for years. And though I speak zero Bahasa, I'm made to feel at home. I'm one of them. So that's something that keeps on drawing me to Indonesia, and that's one reason I want to start this series of you youngsters making a mark outside there, getting recognition. At the core of it, you are very beautiful people, So would you also do something to promote your batik, your different dance forms? You're good at music as well. Through your channel, would you want to propagate these things, good things about Indonesia?
Yeah. Like I said, my personal mission actually is like to actually show the world that we are Indonesian, we are capable people. But at this point, because my channel is in Bahasa Indonesia and it's targeting Indonesians, so even if I promote that, it will go back to Indonesians, right? I do one day, hopefully, maybe with through other opportunity, be able to promote this to non-Indonesians through English channel, maybe that are getting those. So at this point, why I don't do it, because my market is it's Indonesians. But what I'm trying to aspire to do here is I want to tell my fellow Indonesians in Indonesia that we are equally smart and we are equally talented. It's just we don't have the opportunity to show that we don't have enough system or platform or opportunity to showcase that we are equally good to the world. I think I do that mostly personally on my personal day-to-day, in a way that I'm proudly wearing batik to events. I proudly bring my colleagues to Indonesian food. I myself, just me being trying to excel at work and show my commitment and integrity to my colleagues. It's my way of being brand ambassador of Indonesians, because honestly in my office there's not a lot of Indonesians, and could be the case that I am their first Indonesian colleague, or I'm the only Indonesians that they know, but so I cannot bring Indonesia to them yet, but then through me, then they can start gain trust that, oh, Indonesians are equally good, oh, Indonesians are equally committed, oh, we have the capability to work. So one day, right, so how the perception is, when they are looking for tech talent, they go to India. When they looking for English-speaking talent for customer service, they go to Philippines, and now maybe slowly Vietnam. But they never go to Indonesians for anything, right? Like not because we are not good, but because they don't know what they are capable of. So hopefully I can tell them more that we have the potential capability. But until that opportunity comes, so for me it's like now I'm being an ambassador for Indonesians in a way, like to tell them that slowly our culture and what we are good at, and advocate them to visit Indonesia more often, and also letting Indonesians in Indonesia know that dare to dream big and to work abroad, and it's very, very much possible. And because we are not, I would think that Indonesians is a bit superior compared to other countries, because maybe superior mentality, but superior, and because they think if they being confident is often mistaken as being arrogant. No, but it's not a thing. Like being confident and still have humility or being humble can come side by side, like can coexist. So I think for now that's what I will still be, what I continue be doing. But I always support Indonesian's brand in Singapore. That's also come through to my content. If like there's Indonesian restaurant, Indonesian batik wants to collaborate with me, I'll be very happy usually like to support fellow Indonesians in Singapore.
And do you have a favorite Indonesian restaurant in Singapore?
I have a few. I like Bebek Pandut, which the fried duck. I tried the one in Lucky Plaza, and then in terms of noodle, I like J-Town. J-Town, because they really have noodles like Indonesian local noodles, a bit chewy and thicker. And then in terms, I'm still looking for the best martabak in Singapore. So if I found the best martabak, I'll let you know as well.
Thank you very much. You are really an ambassador for Indonesians in Singapore. Mickey, thank you for your time. It's been delightful talking to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Bye-bye.